Hey everybody, and welcome to Film Freaks TV. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I'm here with,
Paul Apersenza, known as the Moo Cow Moo.
and we got a special guest.
Lenore. I still don't have a nickname.
I think you had one on the podcast, but you did one before.
We'll go with the lovely Lenore.
Okay, that works.
Okay, lovely Lenore.
Yay.
And we've also got Lady here, of course, back again.
Yay.
Alright, so Paul, take it away. This is your film.
Okay, so this time we are doing the 1987 John Sayles film, Matewan, which is about the sort of goings-on that happened in 1920 in a place, basically Matewan, West Virginia, with these folks who were working for a coal mine who would like to unionize, and the company doesn't want it, and the state doesn't want it, and the federal government at the time didn't want it. And this guy by the name of Joe Kennahan comes into town, sort of bringing the idea of the union to them, and that's kind of where the whole plot sort of goes off from there. It's an excellent, excellent film. It's one of several of John Sayles' great films about basically the very American topics. If you recall, hopefully you do, he also was the director of movies like 8 Men Out, which is about baseball, which is quintessentially American. He also did movies like Lone Star, which was set in Texas, a sort of Tex-Mex film noir film. It was really, really, really good. He did, let's see, guys, he did Passion Fish, and he did Secret of Rowan Inish, which was a film about this little island in Ireland. It was really, really cool. He's just done a whole bunch of films. He's an excellent independent film director and writer. And he's had his career for 30 plus years, and excuse me, the problem is it's difficult to find a lot of his movies. I think MGM has 8 Men Out, but most of the other films are either out of print or they just aren't out there. So for Film Freaks, I had to sort of buy the Korean version of this film on DVD in order to get it here for everybody to watch, which is really a shame because this is definitely a film that should be out there. And I think you even mentioned it, there should be a Criterion version of that because this film is this good. It really deserves to have the Criterion treatment.
Definitely, it feels like a Criterion movie in itself.
Right.
So it feels like we'd be watching this for Criterion watch.
Absolutely.
So we were watching it for Film Freaks.
So again, it's directed by John, written by John Sayles, and it stars, Chris Cooper. He's the guy who stars as Joe Kennahan. He's the lead. As a matter of fact, this is his debut film.
I was saying, to be a star on your first film, that's pretty amazing.
Right. Well, he does a great performance.
Oh yeah, it does.
Mary McDonnell, who is in all kinds of films. She was in Passion Fish. She was in, Independence Day, Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko, she's the mom, right?
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And of course, she was in Dances with Wolves, and this is the film that she did before Dances with Wolves. So before she kind of became a star on that film, she was in this. But there's lots of other people involved. James Earl Jones is in this, from Star Wars, among many, many other films.
Sandlot.
Right. Fabulous actor, does a great turn here with a character by the name of Hugh Cloves. Really, really, really good. Will Odom is sort of the secondary lead. He starts off as a young preacher. He's also the narrator, so he kind of ends up bookending the movie at the beginning and at the end. And for those of you who know, he's also an actor, but is primarily known as a musician. I was telling John here that he was in a 2017 movie called Ghost Story, which I have not seen. And he's been in a few movies, but he's mainly known as a musician.
Is that the movie with Carol Kane?
I think so.
Something, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard a few things about it. David Strathairn is in it. He's one of my favorite actors. He's absolutely fabulous. He is in a lot of John Sayles films. The rest of you guys might remember him from Silkwood. He was in 8 Men Out, of course. He was in LA Confidential. And he was in probably my favorite film of 2005 called Good Night and Good Luck, which was the film about Edward R. Murrow. That was a great, great film and worthy to be on either Criterion Watch or on Film Freaks as well someday.
Which one?
Good Night and Good Luck.
Oh, I didn't know that was a Criterion.
Fabulous film. I don't think it's Criterion, but you never know. I'd have to look it up. So Kevin Tighe plays the main bad guy. He is another veteran of many, many, many films. He's the guy who plays Hickey, one of the Baldwin Felt agents, along with Gordon Clapp, who plays Griggs. Most of you remember Gordon Clapp from NYPD Blue. I know he's been in a few other independent films as well. And then, let's see, Joss Mostel, who's Zero Mostel's son. He's in there. He plays the mayor. He's been in a bunch of movies, too.
I recognize him from Billy Madison.
Right,
so,
right.
He was great as the principal in that.
And finally, there is a very good turn by Hazel Dickens, who is a famous folk singer, and she sings pretty much all the songs that are sung in the film, and she has an amazing voice. And
Was she actually in the movie at all?
yeah, she was the one who shows up at the revivals and at the funerals singing.
Oh.
That's her, yeah.
Cool.
So, and it's really cool. I was telling Jonathan that a couple of the songs, in particular the first song, the pro-union song, was actually written by John Sayles.
Oh,
So,
he's
yeah.
also a music writer.
He's also a music writer, so very, very
What
impressive.
can John Sayles not do?
I don't
Apparently
know.
also
Get an Oscar, apparently.
He's also the preacher.
Yes, he's a very, very good turn as a preacher. And it's a shame. I mean, like, he's been toiling as an independent director for a long time. He's made some fabulous, fabulous movies, just like Matewan. And, I just think he just doesn't get the respect that he deserves, unfortunately. But he's still out there and he's still making movies. So if you get a chance to see a John Sayles movie, definitely should check it out. So I have seen this and loved this movie since it came out in 1987. But you guys, this is your first time seeing it. So what did you guys think?
You go first, Lenore.
I really liked it. There are a lot of really good scenes. My favorite was when Hilbert's mother shared the rabbit and stuff with the, I guess at that point they were neighbors.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
Yeah, and the situation is that in order to do their coal mining more efficiently, the company started bringing in all these African American people from other places, and then they were bringing in all these cheap foreigners to come in and do the dangerous work too. And so they were all kind of living cheek by jowl, and when they all go on strike, they have to create a camp, and they're all living together side by side. And there are all these wonderful moments where the cultures are colliding because they don't really know anything much about each other. And at one point, Hillard's mother was saying, "Oh, that foreign woman has the evil eye," and they were definitely having some conflicts there. And when they were getting their portions of the cornmeal from the strike committee, she was complaining that the Italian women were turning into this sloppy mess that the pigs wouldn't eat, but they were just
Oh my
making
God,
they
yeah.
were making polenta, which she didn't know anything about. So it had some funny moments. And then, unfortunately, at the end, when Hillard gets killed, and it's the Italian woman that actually comes to her, and they end up drawing closer because of that through tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great scene.
Yeah.
Music scene too.
I'm sorry.
Oh, the music scene for all those different songs.
Right. And that was cool too. At first they're all sort of doing their individual music, and then as the camp starts to go and to be created and they start to gel a little bit, they start to harmonize. That was a cool moment. So like the Italian guy's playing his mandolin, and he invites the two white guys to come in. They bring their fiddle and their guitar, and then the African American guy brings his harmonica, and they all start, harmonizing together, which is a very nice, very symbolic moment for the film. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
What did you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, it was my first time watching it, period. My parents owned it on Betamax back in the day, and I always remember seeing the name, but never watching it, never having any interest. That just the name just didn't draw me in. So I never watched it, but I think if I were a kid, I probably wouldn't have liked it. I think this is definitely a me now kind of like looking at, I'm glad I watched it in today's time right now, where
Sure.
it's kind of a movie that kind of symbolizes a time period that was definitely really big. Like, we're actually approaching the 2020s, so we're almost like,
It's almost 100 years out.
yeah, it's almost a century out.
you know, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's just insane
And
thinking about that.
it felt perfect, didn't it? I mean, it felt like you were there in this grubby little mining town in West Virginia in the 1920s.
I always liked the look of like the 20s and 30s with the hats and stuff like that. So, and the buggies and the
Right,
different stuff that people were riding in.
And John Sayles has a really, really good knack for capturing period pieces. He's really known for it, as he did in Eight Men Out and Lone Star and some other ones too. I know this particular film had a $4 million budget, so I imagine.
So that's probably the most expensive, right?
Just getting all the period details correct, the costuming. They did not shoot this in the town of Matewan, but they shot it in a place very close by. So it definitely still kept the look that it would have had back in the 20s, and it was just a fabulous, fabulous set.
For a movie with like the background being a lot of mining and stuff, there really wasn't any mining. Like at the beginning, had a little bit of mining. Then when they like all went on strike and everything like that, there was like no mining like at all.
Right.
You know, I don't even know. 'Cause later on, they have coal, and they had to go steal the coal, and that was a big thing with Hillard. But I was like wondering how the hell they got the coal because they didn't have anybody mining.
Right.
You know, there must have been leftover coal that they were
coal.
like stealing or whatever.
Right.
You know, did I always wondered, did Joe give that order to go steal the coal, or did those two just do it on their own?
I got the impression they went to do it on their own, but Joe knew about it, and Joe probably figured it's something we could probably use, and he wasn't going to try and talk them out of it because, you know, teenage boys they're just going to go off and do their thing anyway. He probably would have said, you know, be careful or whatever, but the film doesn't have to dwell on that. You know, it just kind of lets them do their thing.
Right.
Why did they need it though? They were cooking with firewood and everything.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
By trees.
Yeah.
And they were cutting trees down.
And they were
like,
cutting trees down too.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know it's a real story, so that probably happened to a real person. I'm not sure if all the names are real, or if they changed
Some of the names. Sid Hatfield's is real, C.E. Lively is real.
Joe?
No, Joe's not.
Was Joe a real person, period? Was there somebody?
I think Joe is an invention. I think he's kind of stands for whoever it was that brought the whole union idea down to the West Virginia miners at the time when they were trying to organize.
Interesting.
But, you know, it's not that different from, say, Joe Hill, who was a famous sort of American union hero. So it's not that different from that, in my opinion. C.E. Lively was a real person. Let's see, Hugh Close was a real person. I think he was an amalgamation of a couple of different people. But there were a few.
How about Hickey or Hickey?
Yeah, no, I don't think the names are right, but the Baldwin Phelps were definitely a real agency. They were like the Pinkertons, except they primarily outfitted themselves with the coal miners and with lumber people and with breaking unions is really kind of their thing. So they were thugs for hire.
After you watched this movie, did you research it? Like when you first, you know, began to watch it and everything?
A little bit, yeah. Wanted to make sure to be able to touch on all the different little
I was
bits
just
and
trying to talk
pieces.
about in period, like did you really get into it and stuff?
Oh yeah, especially when I first saw it.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I had to go and research it. And when I went to West Virginia, I went down into Mingo County to see if I could actually find the spot.
Did you?
And while I found Matewan, I didn't find the spot of where they shot it because it was like a couple of towns away.
But did you find like where this whole actual stuff actually happened?
Yeah, and in fact they have monuments and such, and I think at the courthouse that he was talking about where Sid Hatfield ends up getting killed, I think there's like a little memorial or a plaque or something like that there.
Interesting.
It's a big deal there, even today, and the whole thing with like the Hatfields and McCoys is still kind of a big deal, and you know it's a very interesting country, that's for darn sure. And he was right. I think he talks about how these are some tough people who had to do some really tough jobs and very tough situations, and they weren't people you wanted to mess around with.
Right.
But it was funny because there's that one scene where they're in the camp, and all the men have gone off to do their union stuff that they think that they're trying to do, and it's just Joe with the rest of the women and the younger ones, and the Baldwin Phelps agents show up with 2 guns, and they start saying, well, you people have been stealing stuff from the company, you know, you need to start bringing it all back, and we're here to collect it, you better give it up. And Joe's like, well, how do you know whose is whose? You have a list. And of course they don't, because they're just trying to terrorize them. And they say that's the red, that's the commie, and they threaten to kill him. And he's like, everybody, watch, and I'm going to need witnesses. Is if you murder me in front of everyone, people are going to know about it. And the guy's like, oh, that's a lot of cold comfort for you. And just about when you think he's going to get shot, that's when these hillbillies come out, and with shotguns and stuff, and they sort of put their guns on them, and they end up diffusing the situation. And Hillard's mom is like, oh yeah, those are the real hill people. They can be real dangerous. So it's like you've got these hard miners, but even they were kind of scared of the hill people.
Yeah, no. And that was a great scene. That's probably one of my favorite. I was trying to think of what my favorite scene would have been in that.
Oh, there's so many.
I mean, yeah, there's some really good scenes in it. I'm not gonna lie. It had I don't know. It was just one of those movies that had, you could tell it was very well crafted.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very well crafted, very well written. The language was fabulous. I really loved the dialogue between all the characters. It was very, very real, but it also seemed to have a very regional flavor to it. Like Mary McDonald would talk about how she would wash up and, just kind of using the idioms and the slang and the dialect of the area. It's pretty cool.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I do know my favorite scene.
Okay.
And then I can tell my favorite scene. You can tell us yours. But my favorite scene is the scene where what's this, the preacher boy? I forget his name.
Oh, Danny.
Danny goes into it goes to look, to actually just bring sheets to the guy's room, and he comes in there and he puts the sheets down, and
All
then
the felt agents.
into their room, and then I guess he's kind of just looking around, kind of not spying, but he's just kind of glancing around. And
well, the guy left the gun there, and of course, any teenage boy is going to look at the gun and say,
exactly.
Whoa.
So then he realizes, I'm, like these guys are coming in and they're gonna think I'm doing something. So he hides in the closet, and of course he overhears like information he's not supposed to hear, and they kind of keep him around. They kind of tell him they're gonna keep an eye out on him. And
oh yeah, they catch him and they threaten him. They
threaten him, but they do it like the guy, what's his name?
Hicks.
Is it
Hickey.
Is that the main guy?
That's the main bad guy. That's Kevin Feige's character.
Okay, yeah. So he sits down and he tells them the story about how he survived the war.
How he got his medal, yeah.
Yeah, he got his medal, and it was brutal, and it was very threatening, and I was just like, holy cow! Like, kid was so good.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, obviously not a kid anymore, but it's probably maybe a couple of years, probably in his 40s or 50s right now.
Yeah, if not a little old, maybe.
Maybe because it was 80s, he was in his teens, so, or whatever, so.
That is, I can't answer. My favorite scene was in the church when he was telling the story.
Oh yeah.
I realized that they didn't want to do.
The
Yeah,
whole
that was
thing
a
with
good one.
Potiphar's wife.
Potiphar's wife,
Yeah.
the Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat kind of story.
Right.
But he's basically, did you want to tell about that scene?
He'd been threatened by the Phelps people. What's the first part of that?
Baldwin
Phelps.
Phelps.
They threatened him. They said that if he told anyone what they knew, they'd shoot him and his mother. But he was the preacher, and there was a church meeting that night, and he was the preacher. So they were in the background, and they were laughing and talking to each other while he was up there preaching. So he told them the story of Joseph
Mm-hmm.
and the dreamcoat and how he was killed. And they said, draw your own conclusions, and then you can see everyone putting the pieces together.
Right, and part of the story is that there's a betrayal and lying, particularly through use of Potiphar's wife, or a woman, which is exactly what happens with C.E. Lively. He takes this poor woman, Bridie Mae Tolliver, who just has a crush on Joe, and so she uses that to his advantage to sort of manipulate the people, because he's working for the Baldwin Phelps and the coal mine company, and the other folks don't know that. They've been meeting at his place, and they don't know that he's betrayed them. And so the whole point of the story in the church is that he's saying that he's warning them that they've been betrayed as well, and
Right.
pretty much through the same way.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, But though, I thought in the story, in the real Bible story, Joseph lived or whatever, so I was
Well,
like,
they kill him.
what?
Pretty sure they kill him.
They kill him? I thought, like, he went on to, I don't know, unless that play is wrong, but he went on to actually be they thought he killed him, and then he went to work with the Pharaoh.
Oh, yeah, well, maybe that, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think the story was kind of
Maybe.
made to sound, that's why he said draw your own conclusions,
Sure,
because it was
right.
He tailored it to the situation.
into the situation, so he's trying to tell him, like, these
Right.
guys are gonna kill,
And
you know, him.
the genius is, of course, is that all those guys who are there listening to him preach are going to pick up on it, whereas the two Baldwin Felts guys are just sitting there laughing their asses off, and they just think that they're a bunch of dumb hicks. They don't even know.
Yeah, they don't realize it at all, which I'm surprised they still didn't shoot him, because they could have like, they could tell that, after that he knew something. You know, like that he said something, you know, and that.
They could have. They chose not to.
That was good though.
I mean, I think they still preferred to threaten rather than carry out threats, at least initially. But my favorite scene is early on when they just meet Joe, and he's kind of getting sort of taking their size, trying to feel out for what they're about. And that's when Few Clothes comes up and introduces himself, and he says he's got business with the union, and of course there's all kinds of racial issues going on with that, and they start talking about, you're lucky you get yourself out of here in one piece. And then Joe goes on this whole thing about what it means to be a union and how you have to let everybody in, and what it means to be just sort of a collective people, and that you can't just be white people, it just can't be local people. It has to be every worker who works together has to be in it together. So it was it's obviously a very pro-union message, but I mean that's kind of the whole point of the movie. But it's probably my favorite scene, and I think right then and there that showed off the kind of acting skills that Chris Cooper has. So if you're a Chris Cooper fan, you'll love that scene. It's fabulous.
He was in one of my favorite movies, October Sky.
Oh yeah.
The father, I believe. It was
that's weird.
him and Jake Gyllenhaal. But yeah, that was he's a fan. And was he in Apollo 13, if I'm right?
I think so. I don't think I've seen that since it came out.
Yeah, that was a good movie too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an excellent actor. There's no doubt about it. And this was his debut film of all things, so pretty amazed, And like you said, to have him to score a lead like that, we must have been very impressed.
With James Earl Jones, who at that time was a really big. Star Wars kind of made James Earl Jones a huge name, person. So for him to, to score like that kind of big name kind of movie, that's awesome.
Right.
I liked. I don't know. But yeah, I like that scene that you're saying. That I feel like there's a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens in that movie that's really good.
Right. Yeah, the whole thing, top to bottom, is good. I mean, you could say it's a little bit long. It's about 2 hours and 12 minutes. So I can understand that it moves at its own pace, but at the same time, John Sayles shoots it in a way that you can tell something's coming. He's building and building and building and building to the end part where the big fight at the end.
The big showdown.
Right. So he allows it to build, which is good. So I didn't mind waiting a little bit extra for that.
What I liked also was the two bad guys.
They were such jerks.
They were such jerks, but remember when you first meet them, they come up to, what's her name, Hattie?
Bridie Mae.
Bridie Mae. They come up to her and they have this conversation with her. So rude.
I know, but not at first.
Not at first. They're all sweet to her at first, but then they're just she's just and she doesn't even she's not picking up on it because she is sort of a dumb hick. She's kind of slow, and that's why she gets used later on for her kind of stupidity and stuff.
But yeah, no, it really sets the stage and shows you exactly what these characters are like, the way they treat her. And they're very, very consistent throughout. They are such heels. whether they're tormenting her or whether they are,
Threatening
you
to
know,
shoot a kid at dinner.
tormenting the kid at dinner time, or
Oh my
they're-
God, that was horrible.
they're making fun of the people in the church. Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, they were just some
Terrible
awful
people.
people,
Yeah,
but
I don't think they had a single scene where they acted in any way decent.
I mean, and I kind of wouldn't want that, you know.
Well, and that's just it. They're thugs. That's why they're there. They're there to enforce the rules by the coal mining company. You know, so they're not there to play. They're not there to be nice.
You know, they're not there to, you know, play games with them
Right.
or
They are union busters, and that's what their job is. So they're there to threaten and, if necessary, beat the hell out of someone or even kill them. You know, the law was apparently a little looser back then. You could, I guess, get away with murder in a rural place like that. I mean, apparently, poor Sid Hatfield ends up getting murdered, and I guess not much really came of that.
They didn't.
Broad daylight.
They said at the end, right? Yeah, that he got murdered, but they didn't show that. They just kind of.
And what a great role by David Strathairn in that. He played Sid Hatfield so well. You know, initially you're kind of worried by him because, you know, he doesn't seem like he likes Joe or anything to do with the union. He meets him at the boarding house. He says, you know, I take care of my people, and if you bring them trouble, you're a dead man. It's like, okay, and then, you know.
It was very odd. Like,
I
it was
know,
such an odd
I
scene
know.
because, like, I even asked you at one point. I said, "What does he have against Joe?" Like,
Right.
and you never answered me because I
Well,
guess you don't know. Like,
right.
there is no.
He's a little awkward. I think they mentioned that. But, you know, traditionally the law has always been supportive of the unions. I mean, sorry, of the coal companies and the people who are you know, have the vested interest. So it was a surprise both to him and to the rest of us that Sid's actually his loyalty to the town. And, you know, to him, if the town wants to be a union, or wants to be a union town, then he's all for it.
Yeah.
So it was gratifying to see him be the one to stop the thugs on several occasions, and then
have the shootout at the
right,
end.
and the big shootout is really they want to get rid
And
of
he's
him.
the one who started the shootout. Like, he's the one who pulled out his gun.
Well, there's like 15 of them against, you know, him and the mayor. The mayor didn't even have a gun. He just wants to talk. The poor guy.
Or, I mean, the whole time he just wants, like, to
And
end.
I don't know whether you caught that one bit of information, but Hiller's mom talks. Or no, I think it's Danny's mom talks about how originally, I guess, the mayor, whose name I forget, and Sid both liked the same woman,
Oh, I didn't hear that.
and she ended up choosing the mayor. But when he comes in, he's always asking, like, how's, I forget, Jessie or whatever her name was.
Oh,
And then he ends up marrying her later after
yeah.
the shootout.
So that's why Sid married his widow.
Right.
Oh.
So it's interesting. So there's even some backstory there going on with those two characters that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, which, I mean, you wouldn't be able to necessarily tell, like, on the outside because they did a good job, like, you know, still playing it cool with each
Mhm.
other or whatever, but, like, there's
And
a little bit of drama there.
It also explains a little bit, too, why the mayor's character felt like he had to be there. Like, you know, he's not going to let Sid be the hero all by himself, especially in front of his wife, who also liked Sid at one point, and you know what I mean? He kind of felt like he felt obliged that he had to be there. When you think, gosh, why would he be there with all these people in their guns?
Right, like, and he had no gun,
Right.
you know, or anything.
And then it's a sin because he gets shot, and then you see him and he's on the ground, and he's like, I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to talk.
Right. Yeah, but, I mean, that's what he's been trying to do the whole time, you know, just keep talking, talk it out and everything, and
Right.
they didn't want to talk, they wanted it to end,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, no, they were all interested in just busting the union and busting anyone who was involved in it, and anyone who was going to help them, which in this case was Sid and the mayor. So,
No, I liked that the, I guess that the whole town was owned by the coal company or whatever
right.
and stuff, so like, they were just coming in, like, a great scene in that movie was where the two bad guys come in and they just want a place to stay, and they don't have any rooms because they only have one room, and the only
Right.
other room Joe has, and Danny doesn't, Danny's like, I'm not letting you come in,
Right.
and unless my mama says you can come in, you can't come in, and his mom's like, we don't have any room, and then Joe walks up and like, hey, I'll go to the hotel, thank you for
Right.
letting me stay
He
here.
diffuses the situation by being
Yes.
nice.
Because otherwise, and I hated that line I even told you when I saw it, and the guy's like, the
Don't think the coal miner ain't gonna hear about this.
the coal miners aren't gonna hear about this. I'm like,
But
you
you
got what you wanted,
I
I mean,
know.
and with no problem.
He's
you
still
know.
an asshole.
Yeah, he's still a jerk about it. I'm like,
And the passing the peas.
oh god.
That scene where he literally pulled out a gun on a kid.
On him, yeah. Well, his kid did grab a knife, which was probably not a good idea. It's a butter
Was
knife.
it a knife? Okay.
Yeah.
I was
I thought it was a spoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a knife,
Yeah.
but even so, I mean, that's generally not something you want to do.
Yeah.
You better hurry to meet your maker, boy.
Oh god, that line, especially since he's a preacher.
Right,
I mean, I was
right.
like, oh boy.
Eek.
And yeah, and it was like he had the gun on for a while until Hickey told him pull it back, and everything else. I mean, this movie was so much better than because I didn't know what to expect. I kind of came in with no expectations because I didn't know what.
It was a good movie.
Oh well, no, I know, and trust me, I know you know good movies. That's the only two things he knows is really good movies and really bad movies.
What can I tell you? Mediocrity appalls me.
So yeah, but he loves really good ones, and this is a really good movie. So I mean, today's when people who watch it, like, I mean, you liked it, and she's a different generation.
Right, right.
I mean,
Got 3 generations here.
yeah, and if every one of them, like, I think people would dig it. It's just, if you can stand like 2 hours, or plus
Oh,
of
God.
time, watching it. But I mean,
not constantly looking at your phone or whatever.
actually, did you notice I didn't have my phone?
I know. You just kind of let the movie go, and it'll suck you in.
Yeah,
Really well.
they did a good job.
And I'm
like-
telling you, the acting in this by everybody is fabulous. There isn't a bad turn by anyone.
And and sadly, we watched like a pan and scan version.
Yeah.
So we didn't get the full feel of what it would look like if like we got to see it. So hopefully it does come on Blu-ray.
Seriously, Criterion, come on.
or something. I'll tag Criterion in a Twitter thing, saying I just watched this, and this should be at least one of the 1,000 because Criterion's about to have their 1,000th film announced in
Nice.
July and stuff. So who knows? This may be it. Most likely, people are suggesting like Citizen Kane, which like whatever.
Good movie.
It's a great movie, but it's kind of like I feel like that's the easy go-to.
Well, right, because everybody knows.
Yeah, and this would be a good movie.
Well, and that's the reason why I chose it is because A, I'm a big fan of John Sayles, and I just don't think he gets the recognition he deserves. And B, this movie is criminally overlooked. I mean, there are a lot of movie people who really enjoy it, but as far as the wide audience goes, if you didn't see it when it came out in the theaters, you pretty much didn't see it. I mean, it came out in VHS. I have a copy of the VHS, but it never came out in DVD. There is no Blu-ray version. I had to send away to Korea to get a Korean version, a Korean pan and scan of this film just to have it on DVD. And I shouldn't have to go through such lengths for a movie like this. This is a classic Americana kind of story. If you like Americana movies, things like Grapes of Wrath or On the Waterfront or something like that that's quintessentially American, dealing with American themes, this is definitely right up your alley. And in fact, this is the sort of thing that John Sayles tends to specialize in. So those 3 I mentioned, Matewan, Lone Star, and 8 Men Out are a perfect example of that. These are definitely the movies that should be on Criterion.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, and I don't even know if many John Sayles movies are Criterion or not, or on Criterion.
I haven't seen
But
one.
they should be for sure. It's one of those movies that like the whole time it's gripping. You just don't know what's gonna happen.
Right.
And even from the very beginning, when he comes to town, he acts like he's not part of anything. Like I guess he just didn't want to stir any trouble. But he kind of like he says, I'm here just to just to work or whatever, right? And she's like, if you're not working in the coal mine, you ain't
working.
you ain't working here,
Right.
you know, and stuff. And he goes up and at the there's that great scene where the guy walks. I forgot who was it. Which one was it? Walks in and says, "Let me talk to your border here. Let me talk to your border."
Cephas.
Yeah, he goes, "Let me talk to your border here," and he was like, "Okay," and he walks out and I was like, "What is going on?" Like, you know,
Right.
I thought they were gonna like lynch him or something.
Well, and that's just it. There's this very palpable sense of tension because you never wanted to say you were a union man in an area like that at that time because, again, it was equated to communism, so they just as soon shoot you or arrest you at the very least. So
It didn't look like anybody was not union though. At that
well,
time.
it's because they were all coal miners and they knew the value of getting paid for their work. But yeah, so they have to be very hush-hush about it, and they don't know him. They don't know him from Adam. For all they know, he's somebody who's been sent in by the coal company to stir up trouble. They have to figure that out. One of them already is, so he knows the guy's a red, so he writes the letter and sends it off to Baldwin Phelps, and that's why the others start coming down. You know, but even as the movie progresses, Joe is kind of pushed out a lot of times, and they do things without telling him, or they go behind his back, or they kind of undermine him because they still are very, very tribal. They still want to do things because they're their town, or because they're from the same group, or they're the same color, or whatever. And poor James Earl Jones at one point thinks that he's going to have to assassinate Joe.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh my God, it was so awful. Right.
Oh, he was so happy.
Oh.
And I think that made everybody in the audience like giddy,
Right.
you know, because like it was such an intense scene,
Right.
and they had no music, I don't think, or not much.
Right.
It wasn't like powered by music. It was powered by, yeah, just really good acting. Going out in the woods, he's like, let's go. I think I hear something. Let's go in the woods.
Right. He's got
And then
to
I'm like
lure him
thinking,
out there.
Wait, why is Joe going with him anyway? Because like he has nothing to protect himself with.
He's just a good guy.
You know,
It's a
right?
shame.
Yeah, and he's about to be murdered, and then the preacher Danny had said something, you know, or whatever. The Potiphar wife guy comes out, sneaks out past the other two guys. So, you know, which I was wondering why he snuck out past. I mean, why did it matter that those guys?
Just want to make sure, I guess.
Yes, and then he goes and he tells James Earl Jones, few clothes, like, hey, you know, you don't have to shoot him. Like this was all like.
And it's a great device because it lets off all the steam that's been building up and tension that's been building up in the scene. Not only for the characters, but for the people in the audience, because we're all like, holy shit, is Joe going to get shot? And then it turns out, no, and we're all relieved. James Earl Jones is relieved. He's loving it. He's like so happy.
Yeah, because he actually really, really liked Joe.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Joe was the one who actually got him the thing, and it sucks that he picked the Chinese straw or whatever, and
Right,
he wasn't
right.
able to.
Well, and I mean, in retrospect, it was good because.
Oh, because somebody else would have just shot him probably.
Right. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So it was a good thing that it was him
And
of all
it's
people.
so tough on James Earl Jones because the longer he spends with Joe Kennahan, the more he likes him. You know, he starts talking about that story when he was in Leavenworth because he refused to go and fight in World War I, and he was in there with a bunch of Mennonites who, for are conscientious objectors at a time when you weren't allowed to be, and it was against their religion to not only kill people but to have to work, have to shave their beards, and have to have all these buttons, and the prison wasn't going to allow them to get away with it, so they pretty much tortured them. They would put them in handcuffs and tie them to the bars, and he said it was in such a way that the only way you could get it from not cutting circulation off your hands is to stand on your toes, but nobody could stand on their toes 8 hours, so they would end up, their hands would get ruined, and they'd be bleeding and cracked open, and just terrible, terrible situations. But they kept doing it. It didn't matter because they were so, driven by their religious convictions, and to the point where even when their hands and fingers didn't work, they'd still tear off the buttons with their teeth. And he thought that was just an amazing sign of courage by people who never even picked up a gun in their life.
Well, that was interesting that he said that, and then maybe a few maybe 20 minutes later, what's his name? The kid, not Danny, but the other one, the little boy, with the mother, who was crying because
Oh, Hillard.
Hillard and them went, and he was asked, who did your, whatever, right? And he's like, I'm not going to tell you who all the 5 names of
Hillard's
people.
death. Eek.
Yeah,
That
so
was
he's
rough.
like, I'm not going to tell you who it is. So they kept pretending to shoot him to get him to like.
Well, they were
think
shooting, they just weren't shooting him.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But they were gonna they looked like they were gonna shoot him, and then they he basically said 5 names, and I was like, oh my God, is that really? And I think he even looked at me and was like, right, because he didn't want me to know that. Yeah, it was 5 dead guys.
And then they kill him anyway.
They kill him anyway. It was crazy.
And then Live was
But-
like, those are 5 names from guys that already died.
But that sacrifice there of him actually doing that, even though he said the names, he said 5 names, he said 5 of the wrong names.
Right, on purpose.
Thinking probably that they just let him go for saying the names,
hoping.
which we're hoping. But no, they let him, I mean,
I'm pretty sure they want to kill him regardless of what he did.
Right,
yeah,
right.
and I think he probably do that too, no matter what. So he didn't want to rat his people out, and just like those guys didn't want to die, sacrifice himself, the Mennonites, because of I
Right.
just think that's interesting that kind of came almost together
Sure,
at that time.
sure.
Like that's a very powerful
And
little message
it's
there.
a great example of John Sayles as the writer, how he puts these things there, and thematically it all kind of wraps up. It's just a very, very well-written movie. Just the way he sets up scenes, the way they sort of lead from one to the other, the way it presents the characters, without being melodramatic and without being too much, in my opinion.
Is the description of the Mennonites in the film, did anyone else's hands hurt when they were describing it?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, that's got to feel terrible.
Yeah.
Eek.
Definitely.
I mean, you got to wonder at some point if somebody didn't make a movie about that.
That would be a little
Highlight.
that would be a little grotesque. I don't know if I could watch that, but it almost
Yeah.
seems like Schindler's List kind of,
Right, well,
where
I mean, it's driving home the point that it took a lot for the people who are pro-union that they've had to go through in order to set up the way the modern world is today. I mean, thanks to the union, we have, regular working hours, we have regular working days, we have things like lunch breaks, we have safe home places to work, we have all kinds of great things. We don't have children working in mines anymore. We have a lot of great things because of the sacrifices that people who have had to go through like this in order to bring us unions, and this is all happening at a time when unions are getting busted yet again, just in sort of different ways.
right.
So it's also a very timely film.
So watch it.
So definitely watch it, definitely check it out. I always wondered if that had something to do with why it wasn't brought up as an Academy, in any of the Academy Awards, because this was 1987, so it was still, the Reagan era, and he was also, in Hollywood, so he knew a lot of people in it. And it wouldn't have surprised me if somewhere along the line someone in the administration said, yeah, good movie, but,
We don't want a controversy.
yeah, we don't want the controversy with that.
Yeah, which that's the thing. Like, it is a very controversial
Well-
movie. Just like we watched Bricker Moran, which was a very
Right.
controversial movie
I mean,
too.
that same year was Hannah and Her Sisters and Platoon were the 2 big movies.
Oh, I can kind of. Well, those are 2 big movies, but it should have at least been nominated.
Exactly.
In that thing.
Should have at least gotten a nomination. There were a couple other movies.
I don't think it
The
would have
Mission,
won.
come on, The Mission.
It wouldn't have won to. It definitely wouldn't have won over Platoon. I'm sorry, that movie kind of. I hate to say that's probably. I would say it's a better movie, but it's a different movie.
It's different.
Like, it's definitely a different movie, but I like, it's like, this movie is a movie, like, I'm glad I've seen it, but I don't need to watch it every day, or anything, like, I don't need to watch it all the time. Platoon, I could probably watch a little bit more than once,
I was going to say, I don't know if I want to watch it every day, but it is an excellent film.
Yeah, so, I mean, both of those
And
films.
Hannah and Her Sisters is also an excellent film. So
Yeah.
I can't complain about that. But there are a bunch of other films that kind of were nominated that I was like, nah, no.
Those should have been, like, one of them should have been taken off.
Exactly, I mean,
And
come on.
Matewan should have been put on.
At least, the very least for Chris Cooper and his performance, that was just fabulous. Or James Earl Jones as a supporting performance, that was fabulous too.
Oh, they all did. I mean, everybody did a wonderful. Mary McDonald did a wonderful
Absolutely,
job.
absolutely.
I mean, at one point when Danny got threatened, I thought, bye bye his mom. Like
I
you
know.
know, like you just don't know what's gonna happen
Right.
with these things.
Right,
'Cause I didn't know the history of it, or I didn't know, you know, if I had researched this before I watched the movie, like the actual true stuff, you know, I probably would have known a little bit about what happened, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I got a kind of brand, you know, fresh kind of thing on it.
well, and that's the thing too, is a movie like this, it kind of sparks your interest for the period, for the people, and, you know, if you want to know more about it, we have Uncle Google now, so we can go on there and we can find all kinds of information on Wikipedia or on other sites. And, yeah, there's lots of sources out there that we can find more information. So,
Yeah.
without prejudicing the movie before we see it.
Right. And I mean, it's a wonderful story in a way. Like like you said, it was definitely a part of our history, but it's also American history, but it's also a part of like, I mean, like even from the beginning of the movie with the black guys getting attacked because
Oh,
they
yeah,
were
right off the bat.
right off the bat, like they were not allowed to, but they were just coming to get some work, man.
Right,
Just
right.
like, and they did. They got work because Joe was the one who helped to get them freaking work because
Right.
he was telling them like basically we need people, you know.
And that same scene that I love where he closes up there and you know, dealing with the union where he gets called nigger and he accepts it because, you know, and he comes to explain, you know, I understand, you know, white folks call me nigger and that's just the way they are. But I ain't never been called no scab, and he really took offense to that.
Yeah, he took offense to that.
Oh my
word.
God, he was so pissed off, and you know that's just it. If you were somebody brought in to go around the unions, that's what you were called, and there was like nothing worse to be known than as a scab, and
Right.
boy did that really tick him off, and I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, definitely.
Where did that term come from?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of interesting research there. I'd love to go in and read a little bit more about it. I used to know a lot more about it back then. I've forgotten
I
most
mean,
of it.
unions still call people scabs.
Yeah,
if they
yeah,
leave the
yeah,
union
absolutely.
and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but like, scab is like a healing wound. Why would you be called that?
I couldn't
Because
tell you.
it's disgusting looking.
Yeah.
I don't know what the thing is with that, but yeah, I liked that, and then I liked when one of the other black guys in the movie was hurt or whatever, had gotten shot or something or whatever he said. You know, they were saying they could go to the doctor and the doctor would help them out because he's part of the union, and he said, well, you know, he's not going to help out a colored, you know, he's not going to help out a colored guy. And he said, yeah, I don't, you know, even if you're colored, you're still part of the union.
Right, if you're a union,
You're a union, you go to a union doctor.
Right.
They'll help you out and stuff.
And I like
that
that-
was wonderful.
That there's balance in there too, because even some of the Baldwin Phelps guys, apart from the two main villains, are kind of shown to have some humanity to them. You know, at the end, they've gotten all these extra hired guns to come in, and they show up in town, and they're young guys, and they're like, well, why are we even here? What's going on? And the guy's like, so you answered that ad, you know, and he reads off the whole ad because he's read it a million times, and you know, you're gonna write your own ticket and do all this stuff. We're just here to bust some chops that the company tells us to do, tells us to do. So, you know, don't expect much glamour. And that's of course what happens, and then that's the same guy who ends up at the end, he's fleeing from the scene, and he runs right into Danny with the rifle, and Danny looks like he's gonna shoot him. He's like, please don't shoot me. And he just kind of like, that's like his moment there where he could have done that and maybe gone down a different path, but he lets him go.
But he chose to go Joe's path.
Right, exactly.
Which I thought was an interesting thing of like, I think Joe was a great influence on him. So when
Exactly.
Joe dies, Danny's able to kind of continue.
He's the new Joe.
He's the new Joe. He's continued to kind of do what is right in the town.
Right, and he even says, from that day on, the Union was my religion.
Right.
So that's the preaching that he ends up doing.
Yeah, he ends up working for the Union and doing the stuff that he, needs to do. I guess he didn't become a regular preacher. But
Right, and so he let that young bald felt guy go, because to him he didn't care. He was just there to get some work, just like those guys were. They were just looking for some work.
He did have a great line about when he was in the funeral, and he said that God, that he doesn't think that God planned all of this to happen. And he was
Right.
like, and I think when you're born, you're just kind of set out to the world.
Right,
God
right.
doesn't control your fate. You control your own
Right.
fate.
He helps you get born, and after that, it's up to you.
Right. And I thought that was an interesting take on that after
Mhm.
that, because I think he had a crisis of faith, basically, of how he thought,
And you could see that was coming too, because the preacher, the hard shell Baptist missionary preacher, played by John Sayles really well, he clearly was the old school status quo. Union people are devils, they're evil, they're horrible, they should all be killed, blah blah blah. And you could definitely see that they were not seeing eye to eye on that at all.
felt like he was gonna smack him in the back
I
of the head.
know,
Like,
it was amazing.
he was so mad at him for
And
going
it's
up there.
great the way he does it. He does this in this very melodramatic way. He's like, in the Bible, he's called Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies.
Yeah.
And in our time, it's Union Man, socialism. Oh, and he kind of goes off on this. And he's looking right at Danny, and Danny's like, you sucker.
Yeah, Danny was mad because, but then Danny gets his revenge because
Right.
he goes up and he says his bit, and he kind of goes about the Union,
Right.
talking about how great the Union is and blah blah blah, and and you can tell the guy was just John Sayles was just shaking.
I
his
know.
head.
He's like, he wants to get up and shoo him off the stage quickly.
Yeah, and he didn't though. I thought he was going to,
I know.
mid preach.
I know.
I guess that's just maybe that's still respect. I don't know. That's
That was
funny.
fun.
Do you remember that? Just like it was a great scene.
Absolutely.
Just,
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
it's one of many, many, many great scenes. Can't say enough about this film. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, once you see it, I think once you get to like the meat and potatoes of it, like what's gonna happen, what's going on, who the bad guys are, and the Union has started up and everything.
Mhm.
That's when things like really kick off, and it becomes this like, what in the world is going to happen next?
Right, right.
Because I thought the people were gonna come in at one point and actually shoot everybody at the camp. Because it was very close to that.
Oh, I know.
If they, and you know what, they could have done that, honestly.
Sure.
Because, they could have shot everybody and then just said, I don't know how they died.
Right, right, yes.
Because there was no witnesses that they just shoot
Sid
everybody.
Hatfield couldn't be there everywhere at the same time.
I know, because he was there with the, wasn't he with the Unions when all the guys were gone and then the people came to the camp? So, when he was saying, are you going to shoot me in front of everybody? If they had just
Could've.
shot everybody, they could have shot everybody.
Right.
They had enough bullets for that?
Maybe not, but maybe. I mean, they had a lot of guns.
Yeah, they would have made their point, but it's funny because before he gets killed, poor Hilliard is pointing out to those guys like, you just got guns. And the guy cracks him in the face and says, yeah, we just got guns. What are you gonna do about it?
Right.
And that's when the Hill people sort of step in and save the day.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was good. But
I love the one line where Griggs was such a rotten character, but he was tough even to the end. Where the guy's got the gun on him, he's like, "Where'd you get that shooting iron, boy? The Spanish War?" He's like, "No, the war between the states." Thought that was hysterical. So clearly, Hillbilly's up there without the latest technology.
yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty good. And then I like that he got at the end with the mom, the mom.
Oh
with the
yeah,
shotgun.
Hickey.
Hickey. Griggs is the other guy and everything.
Yeah, Griggs died. He bumps into Cephas when all the chaos is going on. And they both turn around and shoot each other, and Griggs shoots Cephas in the knee, and Cephas shoots him in the chest. And then he's lying there, and then at the end, when Sid's kind of walking around seeing what's going on, he hears the gun go off, and he goes over, and it's Hilliard's mom who's sitting there just shooting bullets into Griggs' body, you know, just to make sure he's dead, but pay him back.
Payback, basically, or make herself feel a little better. Which
Right.
After a while, I think it was Joe. No, not Joe. It was because Joe was dead.
He died.
He died, but whoever it was, maybe it was the guy, not sheriff, but the what? Sid, yeah, Sid came over and said, you know, you can stop that now, you know, stop shooting.
Right.
He's dead, you know.
Like 15 bullets in him. Yeah.
I know.
It's interesting. So Cephas, he's the guy in the very, very beginning of the film who's in there when the credits are rolling, and he's in there digging away and coughing. He sets the shot that's going to blow up the mine scene, and Danny comes running up and, you know, he's going to tell him about the union business. He's like, "What are you doing here? I'm about to do a shot." And then says, "Well, they just lowered the tonnage rate again." He says, "Oh, okay." He's the one who gets Joe when Joe gets there. He's there throughout the film. He also is there when they get ambushed because Lively, you know, rats on them, and the Baldwin Felts take them from behind, and he gets shot, and then he hides down below a log, and the two hill people find him there, and he's still alive, and they drag him back, and they save his life, and he's tries to leave. He's like, "Oh," and he's like, "What are you doing? You're gonna kill yourself if you try and leave now." He's like, "I have to get down and tell them what happened." So he gets down there and he tells them, and then he's in the big gun battle at the end, but he gets shot again, but he's okay.
Oh, Cephas?
That was Cephas.
Oh my God,
It's all
poor
Cephas. I know. So he kind of goes through a lot, but he lives at the end. So
Is he a real guy?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look that one up.
Yeah.
But tough guys. Definitely tough folks there.
Definitely. Well, what is our, what's our opinion on this movie? Like,
I think it's a great film. I think everybody should see this, definitely.
what do you think?
Are we doing the numbered thing?
No, we're not. We're not. I don't think so, because
No.
these are all great movies
Right.
that we
Oh,
pick,
okay.
you know, generally, like, rating them is kind of silly in a way.
Right.
Because-
We're film freaks about
Yeah.
these films.
Yeah,
That's what we're
so-
trying to do is
but we
bring attention to them.
Yeah, and we want people to know. I mean, obviously we like the movies, but I mean, you might not have liked it, or I might not have liked it. You know, you
No, I
never
liked
know.
I
Yeah.
think it should be played in schools.
There you go.
Yeah.
History.
Definitely. It's
Absolutely.
definitely a very historical. I would have loved this movie. Well, I guess it would have had to be high school because it's pretty violent. You know,
It is.
It's a lot more violent than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, when they kill Hilliard, that was rough.
Oh, that was like
That was the
Yeah,
roughest
that
scene
was-
in my opinion.
that was probably the harshest scene.
And you don't even like see a lot because the worst parts of it, you're looking at Danny's face and him
Yeah.
reacting, but you see enough.
Painfully drawn out.
Right, you see enough, and it's not good, it's not happy. Because they don't even shoot him, they use a straight razor.
Yeah, because they look like they're gonna shoot him, but then they decided that they were gonna actually just slit his throat or something.
I wanted him to suffer.
Right, and then Sid has to bring his body back to the camp, and his
And the mom's
mother's
crying.
wailing. Oh yeah, that's rough.
I didn't know who that was at first. Like, I didn't know who was crying at first. Then when you see her up close and
Right,
oh
right.
God, that's horrible.
Because you're looking at Joe tending the fire, and that's when the sound starts, and you're like, what's that? And he's like that too, and he goes to find out. He finds out when we find out, and yeah, it's rough.
It's rough.
I thought it was Danny crying at first.
Mm-mm.
I thought
And
it was too.
then Sid drops that line, you know, just to sort of rub a little salt in there. He's like, yeah, the Phelps people are coming tomorrow. Like, this is all coming to a head. So this is bad, but it's going to get worse. And it does.
It just occurred to me, Hillard was killed at, like, early in the night, and it was the next morning when they brought his body back.
Right.
So, Hillard's body would have been, and, it would have been next to the body already.
Oh, it's horrible. No wonder he like changed his tune on the preaching stuff because like seeing a dead body, like
Of your
your
friend.
your best friend,
Right.
somebody that you loved, you know, in a way, like that just has got to be something like, you know.
Yeah, definitely changes the way you look at life.
Yeah, even if Hillary had died from something natural, just being next to the body would have been enough to change your mind. Witnessing the murder too.
Right. It's harsh.
Yep. So it was an educational experience for everyone involved. That's for darn sure. And it's the sort of thing that you hope, you know, as a society, we only have to do this once. You know, and hopefully people will remember and understand and read about stuff in history, so we don't have to deal with this kind of crap again.
Exactly. But, you know, I mean, thankfully we have unions and things are, you know, changed, and it's because of things like this that.
Thankfully, we have filmmakers like John Sayles, who are talented writers and directors, and who will bring this to our movie screens. And you know, this is exactly the kind of movie we should be supporting.
Definitely. So if you have not seen this movie yet, I mean, sorry if you have to go to Korea to get it, you know, or whatever, order from Korea.
It'll come out sometime. I just don't know when. There's a bunch of movies, particularly in the '80s, that came out in VHS but never came out in DVD, and are probably not coming out in Blu-ray, that are out there that are excellent films. Like Phil Forsyth has a bunch of movies that are fabulous that I loved, still not coming out in this country at least. And someone's got to do something about that. These are great films that people are forgetting about or not getting a chance to see, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll probably call this Matewan a must-watch.
Yes.
That should be the top as the title, because this is definitely a must-watch.
And I would love to see a Criterion version of this where they restore everything. No pan and scan. I mean, that's what we had here, so the edges are cut off.
I know. Howard
such a
Wexler,
shame.
I think is his name, is the DP, and he would have been, you know, he should have been
Appalled.
ashamed and appalled that they would even release this like that.
But it's the only way, unfortunately. But yeah, Criterion would release it properly. It'd be probably at least a QK restoration. There'd be all kinds of great music stuff there, all kinds of great stuff. I'm sure they'd have John Sayles on there giving commentary and maybe a featurette. It's
Yeah, he's
way
still
overdue.
around, man.
Oh
Why
yeah.
not?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Is he on Twitter?
I don't know. I see. The thing is, I don't know who controls the rights to these movies at this time. I honestly don't. I know MGM has the one for 8 Men Out because that did come out in DVD, and it was MGM who put it out. Now, I haven't seen a Blu-ray of that yet, but it might be. Lone Star, I have not seen. I think Passion Fish was out in VHS as well, and DVD, but I don't think that's ever been put out in Blu-ray. I don't know. I don't know if he owns the rights and he's got to work out a deal, or somebody else owns the rights, the producers. I don't know. It's worth investigating, I suppose.
I'll definitely have to look into that.
But Matewan has been sadly overlooked, and that's why I wanted to make sure that this little show of ours at least got to highlight it a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you guys for checking this out. This is awesome. We all loved it. If you have not seen it yet, go check it out, because we highly recommend it. I don't know if anything's on YouTube or anything like that, or whatnot, but go watch it somehow. You know, because
Definitely.
it's definitely a really good movie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, I guess that's our final thoughts, and thank you guys for checking us out. Check us out on Film Freaks TV on YouTube, also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and that's it about.
And next week, I think you've got, or next month, you've got the movie picked out for
Oh yeah,
Film Freaks.
and we're gonna mention it next month, late this month, or late next month.
Follow us on Facebook and all the other normal places, and you'll find out what we're watching.
All right, bye guys.
Peace out.